See the Beef Cregan. What's happening in West Orange, New Jersey this evening?
Ooh, that was a quick one. I wasn't ready. I was looking on the phone trying to share the show on my page. I couldn't do it. Maybe I'll do it. I don't know. Nothing. How are you? Great to be back. It's Wednesday. Excited.
It is, and that was a quick one because I hit the wrong button, but that's okay. We're off to a roaring start. But hey, it's a great day here in Texas because it's under 110, and it has been for like 3 days. It's kind of what we call fall weather here. It's only 76 degrees in Texas. What's happening in New Jersey? Is a hurricane headed your way?
Not yet, no, but it's awesome outside. I'll be honest. Tonight, my wife leaves early for work, so I'm in charge of my kid, which is a scary thought. But she left early and left him shorts, and it's been pretty cold in the morning. So I thought to myself, I don't know about the shorts thing. I'll throw a sweatshirt on him. It was 78 degrees this afternoon. We were sitting outside on the deck, just enjoying the nice weather. It was awesome. She as always was right.
As always. Hey, that little sounder you heard at the beginning, that was supposed to come second, right after the whole intro. And it was just a little bit extended version of that, and outtakes from me and you and Zach Locks Parker, who won't be able to join us tonight, but he's with us in spirit and he's with us with picks. But that little sounder you heard at the beginning was Tom Luganbill talking about this very show last Saturday afternoon at Death Valley. And for those of you who missed it, may not have turned in, whatever, on time. Here it is again. Tom Luganbill on ESPN talking about this show.
This is the Slugo Slant and Go.
I mean, 16 shows in, we're on ESPN.
Yeah, it was awesome. When I heard it, I was immediately dinged by our resident favorite fan, Nelson Wilhite, was like, hey, did you hear that? So, yeah, it was exciting. Hey, Brian, how are you? Yeah, it was exciting to hear our name on it. You know, I know it's a play on the play that actually worked for the Tigers and scored a touchdown for Brian Ladson.
Frank Ladson.
Frank, who was Brian Ladson? I don't know. Went to school with him, kindergarten. I don't know. But yeah, so it went for a touchdown, as did our namesake, which we were talking about from the very beginning with Sammy Watkins. That play. So yeah, I'm glad that Tom Luganbill, big recruiting guru, is a fan of the show, a friend of the show, if you will.
Absolutely. And as you mentioned, Brian Adcock, maybe that's where you got Brian from.
That's it.
Said, hello, guys. Love Tiger Talk on Slugo. Go Tigers. Thanks, Brian. We appreciate you chiming in. Always makes it more fun for us when we know people are checking out the show. And speaking of the show, let's talk about what we saw last week. First off, Clemson routed the Citadel. I mean, no surprise there. We knew it was going to happen. It wasn't a matter of how or if, but by how much was really the thing to talk about. For me, there was only one real big takeaway. And let me get yours first and see if we're thinking the same thing. I only had one really big takeaway from the game.
Yeah, I mean, I think they did what they needed to do, right? It was 49-0 before you could blink. And so I think what everyone's saying is the second half, the second and third teamers didn't score. But I also try to look at things, as much as I'm a pessimistic fan going into each game, I look at it from the positive at the end. I saw a zero burger in the score line for the Citadel with that hokey offense that they're trying to run. I love the defense. I think this defense flies around the field. They're going to be a force, and those kids are as good as advertised. Miles Murphy and Brian Brzee, just Trenton Simpson got a sack. I mean, these kids are awesome. Skalski leading the way. I think Trevor was Trevor. We don't even really need to discuss him. His effortless 60-yard pass to Frank Ladson or to Amari Rogers, excuse me. It looked like he literally, it was old Michael Vick. He just dropped back, kind of leaned back and flicked his wrist. And they said in the stadium, it was just a thing of beauty. It was almost slow motion. He did his thing. I thought ETN was fantastic. Receivers kind of showed up a little bit. I loved Frank Ladson. I know Ngata was hurt. We got a little bit of a Joe. We got Amari taking the top off of the defense, which is what I've wanted to see forever. It was a good. They did what they had to do. I enjoyed the game. It was great.
Wow, you took a lot more of it than I did. Now,
Sorry.
maybe that's okay. No, sorry. Now, maybe it's just I'm used to it by now, but Brent Venables' defense stopping up, I thought it was interesting. You used the word, whoops, there's that word again. That's a dollar. You used it was intriguing. You used the word hokey offense. I didn't know if that had any connotation to it or not, but I'm used to it. I expect that out of the defense. But what I took away from it was a mismatch, but Trevor was on point. And we've seen some things come out this week about injuries he may have had last year with his shoulder, et cetera, that weren't publicized so much last year. But that's what I took away from it. That Trevor was on point. He's been on point the first two games. We knew the line was going to dominate and that was going to happen, but he was there, man. He nailed every pass, as you said, was right in the old breadbasket, in the arms, in the hands, wherever they needed to be, it was there.
Well, think about this. Where were we 3 games in last year with Trevor? Every pundit out there was talking about how off he was and how he was going to have a sophomore slump. He was throwing 100 interceptions a game, according to them. We haven't heard boo about Trevor Lawrence in the major media because they're trying to nitpick everything from him. They can't this year. I really only believe through 2 games he has 2 balls that maybe one was high in the first game, the second one fell down. So there were really only 2 throws that I thought, okay, maybe he was off there. 2 in 2 games. I think we're in good shape as Clemson fans with him.
Yeah, no doubt. And our good friend of the show and our Facebook group, Nelson Wilhite, chimed in. He agrees with you. The defensive depth was ready to play. So not much else. And the Tigers are off this week before they hit Virginia in primetime. And you remember years and years ago, where Clemson fans used to complain about those nooners. And Tommy Bowden loved them, right? Because he could go home and hang out and do whatever Tommy Bowden did, go for a run or whatever. But the fans hate them, and now they're playing at 7:00 or in the evening a lot, and the fans don't like that either. So I don't know, man. Maybe it's the 2:30 slot that everybody wants opposite the SEC game of the week. But I'm okay. I just want them to play. I'm going to miss them this week.
Yeah, absolutely. And I had, that's scary. 16 shows in, we had the same exact thought going in. I remember even living there. The 7:00 games were 8:00 for us in the East Coast. Were a bear when I lived in Greenville because we had to drive in and tailgate a little bit and then drive out. So they were a little tougher. The 3:30s were a little easier. You could get home nice and relaxed and easier. So I don't know, maybe it's my age showing, but I know the fans and the students love the late games because it gets rowdy and you can tailgate all day. Not this year. And the nooners, you got to get up and out there at 6 a.m. So yeah, it is funny though that we're Clemson's on prime time again next week.
No doubt. Well, a lot of teams are back, and we'll start off with the SEC being back. And I see you've got a Texas A&M shirt on, and what's the hat? I can't make that hat out. Oh, LSU. And you were telling me a story about that hat before we started. What's up with the hat? So a life-saving hat?
I don't know about if it saved my life necessarily, but it did. I've had this hat since I was 16 years old. In New Jersey, we don't get our license till 17. So I was still riding a bike, and I was riding down a large hill in the town that I grew up in, and the chain literally fell off the bike. So the bike just locked up, fell. I flew through the air, came about inches from a curb, but it cut. You can't see it on video, but it cut through the hat. And kind of came down over my face, which this might be my best view anyway, and probably saved about half of my face just from road rash and stuff. So I still had stitches on the other side, but not nearly as much. So yeah, so I've kept this hat around. It has nothing to do with necessarily the team. I loved their baseball team growing up, in all honesty. But yeah, and then this is just for you. This shirt is just for you. And for my pick. So I knew because the SEC was back this week that I wanted to make sure that I played SEC fan on the show tonight because they love every team in the conference. And literally the only 2 pieces of clothing that I have are what you see on me right now from that conference.
Nice. Well, it's a good looking hat and shirt, and we can argue about it saving your face, but that's all good. So SEC is back this week with I guess a full slate of games, but a lot of other teams are back too, and we'll talk plenty about the SEC when with Zach on some future shows because he's an SEC homer, but. A lot of teams are back, and I had some questions for you about are they back or are they not back?
Sure.
So Miami, back or not back?
I need one more game, man. I know I joked on the Facebook page, the discussion group, that the U is back. I need one more game, but I did like the fact that in their first game against UAB, they weren't very good, right? But they were able to run the football against UAB, which they probably should have, right? They're bigger, stronger, faster up front. Should have. Well, Louisville has a great front seven, right? So they decided to then pass it. So we now know with Rhett Lashley and his offense, he's able to maneuver and go with what the defense has given him, I guess. But I still need a game that they put it all together. I know I'm saying that when they seemingly put it together against Louisville. I just need one more game. They need to beat somebody. Louisville doesn't really know what they're doing on the back end. It didn't seem like the other night. Front seven be gone. It doesn't matter. But I like they're trending up. I know you don't like that boy at the head coaching position, Manny Diaz, but they are trending in the upwards way. I need one more, a bigger game. Maybe Florida State's probably not it. But I need to watch that one and see if they can, at least they're going athlete to athlete. Right. The team might be different, but at least they're going athlete to athlete, good on good. And we'll see. I'll reserve judgment until next week.
Here's my take. They finally figured out that an above average quarterback is needed to win in college football, right? I mean, it only took them 15 years maybe to figure that out. So give credit to Manny, though some reason I don't think it was him that figured that out. Well, I'm a little biased. So here's my take. They're much improved, right? But week one, we heard, that Miami defense. Now they're playing UAB, and we heard, that defense is great. And they give up 34 to Louisville, and we don't talk about the defense this week. We talk about the offense against a crappy Louisville defense. So I'm in a wait-and-see mode. They are improved. They do have a good quarterback. They do have athletes. We know that. So – and I'm all for it. I want them to improve the ACC. So kudos to Miami so far. I'm reserving judgment. Next team, are they back? Notre Dame crushed Jeff Scott, South Florida, who looked like a JV team compared to those monsters from Notre Dame. And I mean monsters in a good way, by the way. Football monsters in Notre Dame just crushed them. Jeff Scott's got a lot of work to do if he wants to be competitive in his league, much less against the team, a Power 5 team like Notre Dame, Clemson, et cetera. That was my takeaway. Notre Dame, just what you said about Miami. They did what they had to do. They wiped the field with them. There was never a doubt. But they don't have Trevor Lawrence at quarterback. I think we figured that out at Notre Dame. What's your take on Notre Dame?
Yeah, I like Notre Dame, actually. And don't tell my childhood, me, 30 years ago. I do like what they're doing because they're very physical on both sides of the ball. And hey, Terji, I'm very physical on both sides of the ball. I'm just still not sold on Ian Book. Is he a baller? Yes. Is he a gamer? Yes. There's no question about it. But what do you do if you need a big drive? And he hasn't been tested yet. And the one time he was tested that we saw up close and personal on the national stage, he got lit up. So that offensive line is good. They're big. They're physical. The running game is okay. It's getting better. That kid they got back there is pretty good. We're not sold on their wide receivers quite yet, but their defense is good. They get around the field. They are hat on a hat. I mean, they're good. They swarm to the ball and all those other cliches. Yeah, I like that. They're trending up too. I really believe it. Are they a top 5 team? I don't think so yet.
Yeah, I think Ian Book's a solid quarterback. In the opener that I should have played instead of the 3-second version, it was one of my quotes from one of our earlier podcasts about my dentist is a Notre Dame graduate. And I told you and Zach Locks the story about my dentist saying when Ian Book came on campus, oh, we got us a quarterback now. We got him. He's the one. And then he saw him compared to Trevor in that playoff game and went, no, you guys got the quarterback. We don't have a quarterback yet. You guys got the quarterback. Really, they're good. Again, I think they're better than Miami. I think they're a solid probably top 10 team. But something you mentioned jumps out. There are no explosive players. Now, maybe the young running back will turn into an explosive player, but I'm talking about wide receiver. I'm talking about game breakers like Clemson's had in the past of Higgins and Ross, those type of guys. I don't see those on Notre Dame's team.
No, and maybe if one shows up, a couple, 3, 4, 5 games in, if they're young, maybe then we start talking about them. But they don't have the Robinson kid. They don't have the Chase Claypool from last year. We're not sure about them yet, I guess. It's going to lead into my next thought about our next topic because we don't know what we don't know yet.
We don't know what we don't know. That sounds like something I heard at a management conference one time. Okay, I'll throw this one in here just for fun. I don't know if they were ever gone, but they were the national champion in their own minds a couple of years ago. Central Florida beats Georgia Tech by 28 points, and I turn on the TV the next day, and they're talking about them in the playoff. And I'm thinking, is that all you got to do to get in the playoffs? Beat Georgia Tech by 28? I mean, this is ridiculous. It's ridiculous that if Clemson beat Georgia Tech by 28, they'd go, oh, yeah, well, of course they did. Or if Ohio State did, they'd say they should have beat them by more. But somehow, when you're from Central Florida, when you're the darling of the group of 5, all you got to do is beat a crappy Georgia Tech team by 28, and they want to put you in the playoff. I don't get it. What's your take on UCF?
I think my Florida homerdom is going to come into play here. I really thoroughly enjoy UCF. I enjoyed the trolls that there were a couple years ago talking about national champions that year and how pissed off it made SEC fans. I really like the Dylan Gabriel kid at quarterback. One thing is, and I think another show I heard this week was talking about if they were in another conference or if they were somewhere else. Well, they're not. They're doing what they're doing. And another thing I heard too is, are they the best team in the state? And they might be. And here's my thought here. Having lived there for a long time, UCF was nothing. No kids were going there. There's so much talent in the state of Florida, and a lot of them go to Miami or Florida State. And then the dregs, not dregs, but the guys, the 2 stars and the 3 stars that will go to UCF and USF. That's always how it felt in and around Tampa and Orlando, which I spent a lot of time in both. Now kids are actively choosing to go to UCF. They're getting the 3 and 4 star kids now. They're not getting the 5-star kids. They're competitive. They run a high, fun offense. Their defense swarms the ball as well. I mean, yes, I agree 1,000% with you that they won by 28 over Georgia Tech. Do it against somebody else, but they can only win the games that they're playing, and they looked very good last week. I like UCF.
If you recall, it was just 2 minutes ago, I didn't say I didn't like them. I didn't say they weren't fun. I didn't say they weren't good. I said beating Georgia Tech by 28 qualifies you for the playoff. That's where we're at. That's where we're at now.
Put them in. Put them in. Can I change my picks? Can I change it?
You knock yourself out. You can change your picks all you want. And here's one for me right down the street. Let's see. It's that way because Texas is this way and Texas State is that way. So, and I'm not talking Texas State today. I'm going to talk the University of Texas. Are they back because they crushed maybe the worst team in football, in college football, in UTEP? I mean, is Texas back? Because now I see them, they're getting all this love. Oh, yeah. You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of it's around 2000, so you'll probably remember this. Clemson opened the season by beating, I think it was FAU, like 52-6 or something. And I thought Clemson was back. Boy, was I wrong by about 10 years, right? And that's what this reminds me of. You crush UTEP and you're back. Of course, you were back last year and you were back the year before. How about Texas? Are they back?
I don't think so quite yet, but their offense looked good. Every time anybody talks about the Big 12, they're trying so hard to get Oklahoma State into the talk. But what I also feel is that they're trying so hard to get Texas into the talk. Right now, it is head and shoulders Oklahoma above everybody else. Until Texas can beat Oklahoma, and I know they did a couple years ago in the Red River rivalry, it's Oklahoma's conference. So I love Sam Ehlinger. Same idea as Ian Book. He's a gamer that can throw it a little better and has that Josh Moore kid, that wide receiver that looked good this week. Another wide receiver had 80 some odd yards too. I forget the name of him. But yeah, they look good. You got to do something before. Obviously, I'm a tough sell. Apparently,
Except for when it comes to UCF.
Except UCF, no, they can do no wrong. But I'm not sold on them. Do it against the big boys. I want to see that. I'll watch that Texas Oklahoma game, but beat Texas Tech. Not a great team. Beat Texas Tech this week by a handy number, handily. How about that?
There you go.
And then we'll talk.
Well, that's one of the games we're going to pick in a few minutes. So you'll have a chance to tell us what you think.
My pick will be wrong. So, yeah.
Go the other way, right? Go the other way. Oh, let's talk about some polls. Your favorite topic, polls and trolls, I call this segment, because when the polls come out, Casey gets bent out of shape. No matter who's in or who's out or what's going on. I'm past that stage in life. I'm a little bit older than you. I don't worry about it so much, but talk about the polls this week.
Yeah, I mean, they are what they are, right? I think I'm kind of getting a little calmer about it in the last couple of weeks too. But I don't know why I can't. This is a big head. I can't wrap this head around the fact how you can rank teams before they even play a game. So the SEC comes back this week. Now, a thing that I saw on Twitter, how are you ranking the SEC teams, even though because you know they're playing, and you didn't rank the Big Ten teams? I know they took them out when they said they weren't playing, but then they still did. They still keep them out. I think Nelson's probably going to tell me here shortly that they're going to come back in this week or next. But I just don't know. Is Alabama the I'm wearing Texas A&M, Edwin. Is Alabama the number 2 team in the country? Probably, but we don't know exactly quite yet. I need to see it on the field, and I don't know why they do this. I understand it's fodder for us to talk about and for me to get fired up about, and it really bothers the crap out of me, but I'll let it go today.
Hey, Edwin, just so you know, we're not a Clemson podcast. We're both Clemson guys, but we like to talk about all schools and all games, and we're just kind of like college football with a little extra slice of Clemson in, because that's what we are. We love college football. We're bigger college football fans. And most of the shows that are centered around Clemson. We love our Tigers too, but we like all of college football. Polls used to bother me, but they don't. It's just a waste of time now for me. And you're right. It's a reason to talk about college football. But, man, people get bent out of shape. And I was just joking about you, really. It's just kind of –
I do, though. I really do. I don't like – it's great. I'm a Clemson guy, right? Clemson's number 1. Woohoo! We're so happy. But how do we know yet? We don't know, and especially with who all they lost at the end of last year to graduation to the pros. But next week for you, Edwin, I'll put on Seton Hall Prep. I got a hat for you. So thanks for listening. We appreciate it. But yeah, so I don't know why I don't like it. I just can't until we see it because of the attrition, because of the turnover on all these teams. We're not sure. So I like how it's fluid and it moves throughout the year, but it just seems like there's an inherent bias that starts the season. Like, if Clemson loses to an unranked team, they're going to drop 100 spots. But if Auburn loses to Kentucky, and Kentucky was ranked 17th, well, they lost to a ranked team. So how are they ranked? We don't know. I just think it adds into this inherent bias. that I think that's probably the underlying issue that I don't like.
Yeah, and that makes sense. I think I don't remember if I said it on a podcast or it's just you, me, and Locks talking, but I created an algorithm several years ago that started everybody equal. Everybody was 0-0 and nobody had any points or was, number 1 or number 20. And over the season, it filtered out, right, who you played. And guess what? If you played if Clemson started out the season number 1, but by the time you played them, they were 3-3 or whatever, or let's say you played Clemson in the first game, they were number 1. Later on in the season, Clemson loses 2 games and it's 4-2. You don't get credit for beating number 1 anymore. You get credit for beating wherever they are or wherever they end up. So the rankings changed over the season. I've lost track of that these days, and I don't even keep up with the algorithm anymore. But it was unique, I thought, because I don't know of anybody else who starts them out all equal. Even some of the bigger name guys that have those algorithms that rank teams start them out somewhere besides equal. So
that's exactly my point. I think is if they start out equal, because yes, did we know Trevor Lawrence is coming back and Travis Etienne is coming back? Yeah, no doubt. Should their offense be great? Absolutely. Does an injury happen and ruin some of that? Maybe. But I don't know. I could talk about this for hours. I love an algorithm like that. I wouldn't pay attention to it, but I love it.
But here, nobody paid attention to it. That's why I don't get it. But here's the deal. Even if Trevor and Travis and whoever's back this year for Clemson, it's a different team. I mean, I hate to sound like Dabo here, right? But it's a different team. At least 25% of them are different. The chemistry's different. What worked for Clemson last year might not work for Clemson this year. The chemistry in, 2018, off the charts. Was it as good last year? I don't know, but every team is different, and they don't take that into account, or they don't because they can't. And every team, I agree with you in the bigger picture. I don't let the polls bother me, but the bigger the bigger picture, that was a picture and issue combined. Mm-hmm. The bigger picture is every team should start out the same. I agree with you. Just don't get as crazy about it as you do.
And before we move on, thanks to Justin and Patrice out there in Healy, Alaska, for checking in. I do know him. Oh. He is actually the namesake Beef also. So he's thanks for checking in.
Two all beef. He's a little beef. Yeah. Wow. Alaska viewer, and we've had somebody that have downloaded the podcast from Dublin, Ireland. So, I mean, we're getting around, Casey.
Yeah, we're worldwide.
There's our and not just in the lower 48 either, huh?
Nope.
How about that? Hey, speaking of crazy, the schedule has been bizarre, bonkers, and nuts. Kind of like making it up on the fly. This is kind of like when I played Little League, and you're like, do you want to scrimmage on Saturday? Sure. Oh, I've only got 5 guys that can make it. The rest of them are Cub Scouts. Oh, take 4 guys from this team and 3 guys from that team, and let's have a scrimmage on Saturday. North Carolina can't find anyone to play this week. And that is, would you ever think you'd say that kind of stuff about college football? They can't find anybody that wants to play. Memphis and Virginia Tech can't get on the field, right? Virginia Tech hasn't played a game yet, and they might not play this weekend. I don't even know the latest on that.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And it's not that Massachusetts opting back in. Oh, UMass. Why? They don't have a schedule. They don't have any teams to play, but they've opted back in. Air Force has 2 games. North Dakota has 1, and the Citadel has 4. This is crazy. We went from not playing to playing 1-game seasons. What the heck is going on?
Yeah, I don't know why they're doing it, but I maybe for experience, in the NCAA said it's a free year, so maybe it's just glorified practices. I do like what the Citadel's doing. I mean, they got South Florida, they got Clemson, they got Eastern Kentucky, and they got Army. I mean, those are 4 games that Are they winnable? Maybe, maybe not. But it's a step up in competition. Might prepare them, help them have like an extra spring practice. Heck, we don't even know if we're going to start on time in 2021. So, yeah, I think it can go both ways. I can play the con to your pro there, and or vice versa, and say, maybe UMass coming in, they should have looked at North Carolina and said, wow, these guys can't even get a game to play. How the heck are we going to get a game? But maybe Liberty's free for 6 games, or maybe maybe North Dakota State and UMass can play each other. Maybe, some of these other teams can hop on the phone and say, hey, let's play a game. Like you said, you got anybody healthy? Let's go. Well, we'll meet in the middle and play in, I don't know, Missouri.
Nashville or something. Yeah, speaking of which, I saw lost my train of thought there, but BYU. I think they only have 6 games scheduled. Maybe they can schedule a 5-game series with Massachusetts in Iowa City or somewhere like that.
That's the 5. It'd be great.
Hey, we appreciate all the comments we're getting tonight from Nelson and Terji and all the guys out there. Edwin, appreciate all the comments. It makes it a lot more fun for us on this end to know folks are watching and playing along with us. And speaking of our friend Terji, also known as the Pit Boss, I still haven't clicked any buttons, Casey, and I need on his website. I've clicked a lot of buttons, but I haven't clicked any on the Pit Boss sauce website, and I haven't gotten any sauce. But on the other hand, my wife and I haven't gone out for barbecue either, so that's on me.
Yeah, well, I'm excited. He's getting his peppers in soon, and my delivery should be coming in a couple weeks, and I love it. I can't wait. I went with the really hot one. And I'm excited for that, and a couple other ones, his original sauce as well. So I'm excited to get them. I can't wait to be able to even speak. I love the Hickory Smoke Cola. I thought it was great, but that was the only one I've tried so far. I can't wait to try them all, and I'm sure my mouth is watering right now to begin with, thinking about it. I can't wait to get them in house and talk about them, and even come on screen maybe with some on my face in a couple weeks.
Yeah, some Pit Boss sauce on your face. I need to get some because, as I mentioned at the beginning, it's under 150 now. So at the Salt Lake, where we usually go, they only have the outside dining currently, obviously for obvious reasons. But and it's okay out there, and they've got the little misters, But I mean, come on, it's Texas in July, I mean, those misters help, but it's still hotter than heck. And we like to eat there. We don't like to bring it home, even though we did bring some home that day, by the way, Terji. Yeah. So I need to click some buttons on your old website, Terji. We'll get it fired up. pitbosssauce.com. Terji is not only a pit boss, he's a really, really good guy and a good friend of the show. We thank him very much for that. Well, this is Casey. This is where we usually do our picks with Zach Locks Parker, who was unavailable tonight, and he texted us his picks in, and we'll go ahead and do those picks tonight without Zach, without his face, but we have his spirit here with us. So it's just us. So it's not going to be. What are we going to do? We can't make fun of Locks. So that's kind of half of the whole show. What is that? That would still be half. That would be half.
Word problems tonight. Yeah.
Half of the whole show would still be half of the show. All right. First up, we're going to pick Ole Miss and Florida. Florida is a 14.5-point favorite. This game is at Ole Miss, I believe. Is that where it's at? I don't even know on my screen. Okay. 14.5 points. Zach Locks Parker chose Ole Miss. Casey the Beef Cregan, who you got?
I missed that text of his. I know he sent it. I didn't look it over. Excuse me, before I looked at it. Florida is the name, the hot name in the SEC East, right? They're the team. Dan Mullen's recruiting well there. It's Kyle Trask in his sophomore year at quarterback. Lane Kiffin is at Ole Miss. They got John Reese Plumlee at their quarterback. I'm going to pick Ole Miss.
Yeah, this one was not it was a little tough for me at the beginning. I wasn't sure which way to go here because of all the love Florida's getting in the preseason. But here's the deal: I'm not a big believer in Kyle Trask. I think he's good. I don't think he's a national championship quarterback. I think he sometimes wilts under pressure. And Lane Kiffin, right? There's going to be some tricks up old Lane's sleeve on Saturday night. So I don't expect Ole Miss to win necessarily, but 14.5, I think Lane can hold it, maybe a 10 or 13-point game. So I'm also going Ole Miss.
And I think that was what my point was too when I did it. When I was looking at it, that 14.5-point number is pretty big. I think they keep it within 2 scores.
Next up is Auburn and Kentucky, and Kentucky is getting 7.5 points here in this game. Zach Locks Parker to Kentucky. Now, that's Zach's second straight underdog, which is interesting because in the first 14 games we picked, he only took 2 underdogs in those 14 games. Now, Zach took Kentucky. I'll go first on this one between the two of us. I'm going to take Auburn. I heard someone on a national podcast say how good they thought Kentucky was going to be. This game's at Auburn. While I realize there's not going to be 100 million fans there, they still have to travel. They still have to play at Auburn. Auburn's sleeping in their own beds. 7.5 is not too much. And let's not forget, old Chad Morris, right? Sneaky Chad's there too. So I'm going to take Auburn in this one. Who you got, Beef?
Yeah, I along the same lines there. I think Chad Morris plus Gus Malzahn equals, oh my God, what the heck kind of offense are we going to see on Saturday with all those wrinkles and movements and all this and that? I picked Auburn as well here. I think Joey Gatewood is going to be the starting quarterback. From things that I've read for Kentucky, he is an Auburn transfer. So he was not happy about his time or lack thereof at Auburn, transfers to Kentucky. Congratulations, Joey. Here's your first game. So he's a little chip on his think it's probably is what I figured here. I've been wrong all year, so who knows? It's probably going to be a 100-point game. I'm going Auburn. All
right. Well, I don't know. This is not good news, Beef, because you and I agreed last week, and we ended up with the same sterling record of 0-4. And as we joked about before we started the live show, it can't get any worse, but actually can because we're picking 6 games this week. So it actually can get worse. Next up, Louisville travels to Pittsburgh after getting blasted by Miami. Louisville is a 3-point underdog. Zach Locks Parker makes it his 3rd straight underdog pick. So with that in mind, Zach took Louisville. Casey, you're up. Who's your pick? Louisville getting 3 points or the Pittsburgh Panthers?
I went with Pitt here, and I think it's recency bias that's making me make that pick. I thought the defense was exposed by Louisville, especially the pass defense. I think Pittsburgh, even though they want to be a grounded out, pound it type of offense, Kenny Pickett can sling it around the field, and he's actually in that conversation for 3rd best quarterback in the ACC. Heck, he may be up there against Sam Howell for 2nd best. I just like Pitt here at home.
Yeah, I agree with the recency bias. I too went with Pittsburgh after what I saw from Louisville's defense last week, and I realized that was against the new greatest thing in college football, De'Aaron King and the Miami offense. But I think it's going to be a different ball game, and I think Pittsburgh defense will give Louisville fits. And I'm a big Scott Satterfield fan, but and maybe I should play, the comeback game this week. He's going to have him ready after that debacle he put up last week. But I'm not a believer yet in Louisville. I think long term he'll get it turned around. Louisville will be a player again in the ACC, but not this year. I'm going with Pittsburgh. Next up, Texas and Texas Tech. Now, Tech is getting 18 points here, and Zach took Texas. He finally took a favorite this week after taking underdogs first 3 games. He takes Texas. Now, when I started looking at this, I jotted down who I thought I would take, and my first thought was Texas. Then I realized they're playing in Lubbock, and I know that most of our audience is probably not familiar with Lubbock and the taco throwing and all that stuff. They won't be throwing tacos this week because there's going to be nobody there. But strange things happen in Lubbock, like 45-mile-an-hour winds howling down the plains. Texas could probably still run over Texas Tech. I'm just betting on something strange happening on Texas's first road trip. I'm going to take the 18 points with Texas Tech, which is really, really scary considering they had, Nelson knows, 33 players out of practice one day with COVID-19. But I think he'll get them turned around after that first debacle against Houston Baptist, where they gave up 600 yards and 35 points, I think. Houston Baptist, I thought that was an online school. Of course, most schools are online these days. I'm going to take a shot here and say Texas Tech covers. I mean, after all, who thought Tulsa would cover against Oklahoma State?
Yeah, no, that's a good pick. You're having me rethink it. Nelson's saying he's rethinking his picks because he's agreeing with me. And I was joking with him on Saturday that I was just going to steal his picks because he's having a good year against the spread, unlike me. I went with Texas here. I just because of Houston Baptist. Here's the recency bias again. This is why I'm not a professional gambler, right? Because I looked at their last game and saw that they gave up 185,000 yards to Houston Baptist and only won the game 35-33 as part of the narrative that's going around that the Big 12 stinks. Alan Bowman's a decent quarterback. He threw for 300 and some odd yards last week, but that's what the Big 12 does, right? You can fall out of bed and throw for 300 yards in the Big 12. Texas had 59 points in the opener against UTEP. Yes, I know it's UTEP. I like their wide receiver, like I talked about before, Joshua Moore. They've played 61 consecutive years, these two teams, and this is the 70th meeting overall. Texas wins big here. I think it's probably a 4 or 5 score game.
All right. Well, it could be 4 or 5 field goals, and I'd still cover the spread here.
You probably will.
Next up, everybody's favorite game of the week. Tennessee Volunteers travel to Columbia to take on the South Carolina Gamecocks here. Tennessee's a 3.5-point road favorite in Columbia. Zach Locks Parker took Tennessee. You're up first on this one, Beef.
For all my Clemson fans, hit the mute button. I'm thinking South Carolina is going to keep this to a 3-point game. I'm not saying they're necessarily going to win. I just think first game of the year, that defense should be, on paper, Zach Pickens should be good. We're not sure what we're going to get necessarily with Colin Hill at quarterback for South Carolina. We kind of know what the Jersey kid, Justin Guarantano, he is a Jersey kid, St. Peter's Prep, I believe, for Tennessee. We know what he is. He's been pegged as, the next coming for the last 12 years he's been in college. I think South Carolina keeps it close at home. With some fans there, they'll have sandstorm blowing or whatever the heck they do, roosters crowing, and they keep it within 3.
Sandstorm blowing and roosters crowing. I think you just made their next social media blast out, right? Hey, Casey, I agree with you. I don't know what to expect out of this game. I could see Tennessee winning by 17. I could see South Carolina winning. But what I do kind of see happening is a rock fight, right? I see like a 13-10 or 14-13, 17-14 kind of game, right? That's what I see. And they're going to have to prove the new offense to me at South Carolina. Every year we hear how fast they're moving, right? Oh, they're going so fast. They're doing that. And we heard it again this year. We're moving fast. There's nothing like you've ever seen. Yeah, we've seen it. We've seen Chad Morris, and we've seen everything. So
Bobo's saying he's going to the huddle. He's going back to the huddle now. So he's taking it back, and they're gonna huddle up. So watch out for South Carolina's slow molasses.
Slow. I think it's going to be a rock fight, probably a 17-14 type 2017 game. I think South Carolina. I'm close. I wouldn't even be surprised if South Carolina wins, because if anybody's more overhyped than them every year, it's Tennessee, right? I mean, every year. There's another team I should have put on the Are They Back list, and they haven't even played a game yet, right? Are they back? They're in the SEC. Final game of the evening, Army and Cincinnati. And for everybody out there wondering how we pick these games, we rotate. Zach picked last week. These are Beef's picks. I'll pick the games next week. So if you have any beef, with the games that we are picking, Talk to the beef. Cincinnati and Army. Zach Locks Parker took Army. It's a 14-point spread, I should say. They're playing in Cincinnati. Army is getting 14 points. Zach took Army. I also took Army, and basically here's my thought process on this. Army's going to control the ball. I think they've had 2 games, and they've had it 35 minutes in one game and 36 in the other. They weren't on the opponents weren't on the caliber of Tennessee, and I don't expect Army to hold the ball 40 minutes, but I expect them to hold it at least 30, maybe 31 or 32, lower scoring game, could be 24 to 14, 28 to 17, something like that. I don't think Army threatens Cincinnati necessarily, but I'm playing the 14 points here. If you remember a few years ago when Army took Oklahoma to overtime, I think they possessed the ball 40 minutes against Oklahoma. So they can do it against big-time schools, especially ones who aren't used to playing an Army type of offense. I'm going with Army also. Who you got, Casey?
I'm going Army as well. That makes 3 of us. That's scary because we're usually wrong on the ones we pick. Same reason, same exact reason. That 14 number is big. That's 2 scores. Cincinnati, Luke Fickell, they do like to get up and go. Desmond Ridler's the quarterback. I don't know much about him necessarily. I really like the 2 running backs. I know they run it way more than 2 guys, but from Army with Jacoby Buchanan and Christian Anderson. Both had 2 touchdowns last week against Louisiana Monroe. We've seen Army twice. I've seen Army on TV twice. I really like what they're doing. They can run the ball. They're actually throwing it a little bit as well. They're going to pound it out, and that number's too big for a pounded out kind of triple option offense, that possession offense that Army is. All
right. So here we go. Let me recap our week 4 picks. First for Zach Locks Parker. Ole Miss, Kentucky, Louisville, Texas, Tennessee, and Army. Casey, the Beef Cregan, who's sporting a 4-10 record so far. Ole Miss, Auburn, Pittsburgh, Texas, South Carolina, and Army. And myself, I'm not sporting a much better record. I'm 7-7. Ole Miss, Auburn, Pittsburgh, Texas Tech, South Carolina, and Army. And Casey, as I said that, I just got a chill down my spine because out of the 6 games, you and I took 5 of them, the same exact 5 of the same ones. And last week we had, I don't know if we had all 5 or not, but only 4 games got played. We took all 4 teams and we were 0-4. Both of us were 0-4. So I think I'm headed to the basement pretty soon, and Zach Parker's going to get his wish and be somewhere near the top of the standings next week.
Well, it's one or the other. We're either going to go way down to the basement or we're going to go shoot straight to the top this week.
No doubt. Hey, without Zach Locks Parker here to go back and forth with us, a little bit shorter show tonight. But before we end the show, I wanted to give a couple of shout-outs here. First to Zach Locks Parker, who couldn't be with us tonight. Hope to have you back next week, Zach. Turgey, the pit boss. Man, you're our man, Turgey. We appreciate you so much. We know you're a good guy. We just hope that you'll be back. You'll be with us. And I am going to actually click some buttons this week. Turgey, you have a promise from me. Click some buttons on your website. Nelson Wilhite, moderator on our Facebook group. He does a lot of work, takes a lot off Casey and I's back on that Facebook group, and we certainly appreciate that. Sean Flood, Holly Haley Vasquez, Holly, I still need to know how to pronounce your name. Aaron Kahn, Brian David Lee, all typically like our postings, and we appreciate that very much, very consistent there. We had a new one this week, Casey, James Cox, who is, I believe that's the father of Chris Cox, who was our guest last week. So really appreciate all those folks. And it's nice when you're on this end of the microphone or the show. It's nice to know that people are listening and checking it out and appreciate what we're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. We do appreciate it. We would talk to each other for an hour each Wednesday, but it's a lot nicer to knowing that there's people out there. And thanks to Edwin Corning and Justin and Patrice Levine out there. Edwin's in South Carolina. My wife just chimed in with an answer for Justin and Patrice out west. So Drew Vadis from South Carolina. He was an employee. We worked together. He was an employee of mine in South Carolina. So I appreciate all you guys tuning in, chiming in. Bill Long hit me up on my personal phone. He's an Alabama fan, Western Kentucky alum, living in Alabama. He's active on the page as well. We appreciate it all. If I missed you, I'm sorry. But we get in here, get on these comments, and we'll definitely mention you. And we absolutely 1,000% appreciate it.
No doubt. We sincerely appreciate all the comments tonight. I don't think we've had this many comments all the previous shows combined. So thank you very much for that. And as I mentioned, a little bit shorter show tonight, and that's okay. We're not gonna drag on just to talk. We can do that during the day, as we do every day. But thank you very much, and Miss Amy will take us out. We'll see you guys. Next show is scheduled for next week, and same time, same channels. Appreciate it.
Producer Amy, how'd we do tonight?
I think that sounds pretty good.